Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of PAC at 75, Pan-African Congress 75th Anniversary Celebrations, Viewing the Past and Looking to the Future, curated by Professor of Architecture Ola Uduku. My name is Dr. Kai Singh Tan and I'm part of the organizing team. PAC at 75 is a multi-institutional series of creative and academic events led by Manchester Metropolitan University, with contributions from the University of Manchester, University of Salford, and the University of Bolton. And in association with See My World, National Black Arts Alliance, and the Ahmad Akbar Ullah Race Center. So please tweet the session, use the hashtag PAC75, PAC75. This is an open space where we encourage questions, which we ask you to do in a respectful manner. Hate speech will not be tolerated. Please be aware that this webinar and the Q&A session is being recorded. We will be uploading it to our YouTube channel tomorrow for you to view again and share it with your friends and colleagues. If you would like to post any questions at any point during the discussion, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Farida Vis in conversation. Professor Farida Vis is co-chair of the Race Staff Forum at Manchester Metropolitan University. Farida will be in conversation with her former MA student, Cheryl Magowan, about their work on Pan-Africanism and Antiracism. Farida started her early life in Kenya and left when she was 3.5. By that time, the impact of having seen posters and portraits of Jomo Kenyatta wherever she went had made a lasting impression. So she first went to Manchester Metropolitan in 1998 to do her PhD. It was in what was then called Myriad. So Farida taught throughout her PhD, mainly on issues around race, racism, and representation, African struggles for independence, as well as the works of Spike Lee. In 2017, Farida returned to MMU as a professor of digital media, based in the media department. Farida is also the director of the Visual Social Media Laboratory, which brings together interdisciplinary researchers from academia and across sectors, interested in better understanding social media images. Cheryl Magowan forged her campaigning voice at 2 years old, when the local nursery refused to let her join in on the basis of her skin color. The early years story activated her purpose to specialize in leading BAME, equality, diversity, and inclusion initiatives for large arts, cultural, and charitable organizations, and at grassroots levels, teaching self-healing for groups who feel marginalized and dispirited. The moment she realized her unconventional ideas might just work was when she won a National Guardian Award in 2014 for her project with BME elders and mental health. She is the founder of Plaque and Banish, a not-for-profit organization that creates safe spaces for all humankind to explore, equip, and empower within and people living with racism, trauma, and unconscious conditioning. When not wanting to save the world, Cheryl is out on a small adventure in Lancashire with her little family. So without further ado, here is Professor Farida Vis and Cheryl Magowan.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Kai. And thank you everybody who has joined us on a Saturday afternoon to talk about the issues that Cheryl and I will be revisiting. So just to give you a tiny bit of background on this module and on how Cheryl and I are still speaking so many years later. As Kai mentioned, I started my PhD at MMU in 98, and reflecting on how things were so different then, 22 years ago, I was able to, and I was also invited to, which potentially is a little bit problematic, to teach a lot of modules around race and racism, but I was also able to really shape them to focus on my own interests. And one of the things that I think is really relevant to the current debates in academia around decolonizing the curriculum is that at that point, sort of 20 years ago, this really wasn't seen as an exceptional thing to be doing, and nobody was collecting any brownie points for decolonizing anything. This was absolutely a central part of the curriculum. Nobody questioned it. Of course, you had to teach people about, you know, Black British history. And so I think a lot has changed in that sense. But in 2003, 2004, I was invited to give shape to a module called the Negotiated Option in Visual Culture, which was part of the wider Visual Culture MA. And originally the plan was to work with the Imperial War Museum. So the module was very much a combination of kind of critical theory, a theoretical underpinning, and giving the students an opportunity to apply that, working with stakeholders and in a kind of a more practical way. And so there were 6 students who took that module. And one of the things that was slightly tricky on day one is that the connection with the Imperial War Museum had fallen through. So I was very young at the time, and I had to basically go in and tell these MA students who had chosen the module on the basis that they were going to work with the Imperial War Museum that that was not going to happen. And so because there was a lot of freedom to choose and to give direction to, you know, what you wanted to teach, especially in these small options, I decided that I would like to take this into a different direction, and I would like to work on the 5th Pan-African Congress for the remainder of that term. And so I went in and I announced this. And I think it's fair to say that that went down like a lead balloon. I don't think there was a great deal of enthusiasm for this. And what I decided to do, first of all, is to take the students outside. I delivered the kind of quote unquote bad news to them. And then we went outside to have a look at the plaque. And I think at this point, I would love to bring Cheryl into the conversation and maybe think back a little bit, you know, 16, 17 years ago, of what your thoughts were when you walked into that small seminar room upstairs in Brighton. And I announced that we were going to look at this, and we went outside to look at the plaque.
Well, it was such a build-up to be working with the museum, as you said. And then I remember the point of everyone kind of going, oh, like this. And then when we went outside, it was very confusing. Like, no one really knew what Pan-Africanism was. No one knew what this Congress was. No one really understood what was being shared. But we all went along anyway. And we only took about 50 steps. And we were there. And I remember you doing a kind of a grand unveiling. And as soon as we saw the plaque, everything that we thought we didn't understand about what you were saying just appeared real. And it was as if we went right into a time shift there and then into the power of what that movement means and meant. It was as if the curtains opened and we were submerged into that power, because we were captivated. We all stood there in silence like this, I remember, and it was really cold and windy and blustery, but that just seemed to dissipate, and there was this warmth and this power coming through. You just going, this is what happened here. I'll never forget it, never, just standing there. Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing.
And what did it mean? I mean, I remember this really well, and I certainly remember the doubters who slowly came round. What did it mean for you personally to be working on this?
Well, initially, I've got to go back a couple of steps, because to see and meet yourself as my teacher, as somebody taking a module, as somebody doing a PhD who looked like me, was tremendous. I mean, I'll never ever forget that moment. There's loads of memorable things that were imprinted in my mind whilst I was doing the MA, and that was one of them, because I'd never had a teacher before that was of colour, and someone as inspiring and as zesty and feisty and funky as you. So that in the first instant was like, wow, it was a first, you know? And that was mega, because I'd never had that type of inspiration. And I kept thinking, is she really going to teach us? Is she really going to, you know? And that sort of led on from there into this, it is possible. It was like this message to say, it is possible as a person of colour to be able to achieve these great heights. It is possible as a person of colour to get through this extremely difficult system and institutions, because up until that point, all I'd heard was a lot of well-meaning messages, but I'd never seen real examples. So when you presented as you, and then you took us out and told us about this magnificent history that we were standing and sitting on, it was just, it was life shifting, you know, because then I started to see, actually, I do not have to doubt, I do not have to disbelieve, because this is possible. This is possible of a group of people that look just like me to make a movement and to make a difference and to come together. Before that, it was everything opposite.
I think one of the things that, as we reconnected recently and we kind of, you know, reminisced a bit in the preparation for this, one of the things you reminded me of, and I have absolutely no memory of this, is that I was adamant then already that I was going to be a professor.
Yeah.
It's really funny that you said that. Yeah,
you did. You said it on a regular basis, and you made it like a declaration. So it wasn't a call to the wind. It wasn't on a prayer. It was on, this is what I'm doing. And your focus and your energetic point to, this is the next step. And for me to hear that and be around that kind of language, and it was very normal for you, or at least it sounded so normal for you to make that pinpoint into the future. And you were saying it in the present, and it was so real. And it made me see, you know what, this is the kind of stuff and the kind of way that I can see my life. I can look at the future as something that I can literally walk to. I don't have to manifest. I don't have to wish. I can actually make it as part of my life plan in the same confidence that you did, and you used to say it on a regular basis. So I was so happy when we got back in touch, and you are now a professor, and you are now doing all the things that you said you would.
I think it's remarkable that you have this memory, because for me, I guess I just believed it very firmly. I really have no recollection of repeatedly telling you about this. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, you did, but you did it in such a way that it was, like I said, it was like resolute. It was like this is what's happening, and you were commanding the universe. You were telling the space around you, this is my trajectory, this is my path. And I think for people of colour, we really need that. You know, we need to hear examples of that. So for me, it was like food to my ears and my heart, because it's a hope. No, I'm sorry, it's hope.
Let's talk about your journey. So we did this module together, and one of the things that in a way was quite open is how we really wanted to shape it. And I remember that we were kind of, you know, going through it and asking, you know, what is maybe an additional thing that we could do. And one of the things that we decided to do together as a group is to host an exhibition, which wasn't part of the module, but we just decided to do it anyway. And we secured the space upstairs in Myriad for one evening only. And really, much to my surprise, everybody right from the beginning was committed to making an artifact. And that's what we spent a lot of time on developing to prepare for this exhibition. And so I would like us to maybe to turn to some photographs that Cheryl has dug up. And I was amazed that you still had these. To talk us through some of these images. So this is the flyer that I made to invite people for this exhibition. And the artifact that we're looking at is one that was made by Colin McConaughey. And it's a miscegenation puzzle So everybody chose a topic that they were very interested in that had come up through working on the module, through different kind of theoretical ways in. And I remember two people, Warren and Sheila, made films tapping into their Irish heritage. You, of course, we will talk about what you made. And you remember that Rika made something of coming out of Japan, origami, you remember?
Yeah.
So this is what we worked on together. So if we move to the next slide, please. This is what you chose to work on, and can you tell us a little bit more about what you decided to work on and why?
Yeah, well, I wanted to work on the idea of creating memory, and I wanted to do that by some kind of social connection. And I chose conversation because it was just so accessible and so real. So I was like, right, I really want to make a piece that will inspire people to talk, that will get people talking. And I want to connect that with the power of the Black community and members within the Black community in Manchester that have made tremendous contributions and had major, major impacts. And one person that I came across quite early on in the module was a chap called Nana Bonsu. And Nana Bonsu devoted his whole life to the cause, and he set up Sunday schools. He helped young people to access education, funding, food. And I mean, back then he would have been all over social media, but it was a different time. So it was people in the know that knew about him. So as soon as I found out about him, sadly, I learned that he'd passed away the year before. But he led this amazing life, you know, like something out of a film. So I thought, I want to create a table and chairs made out of wood, made out of trees, to represent the knowledge, because he was a Pan-Africanist, to represent the consciousness and the knowledge that he had about bringing our community together and really allowing them to rise through the programs that he did. So what you can see in front of you there on the day that was taken was the day that I found a tree. It was like a quarry, and they had trees that were already fallen, and I needed a tree that was 300 years old. And that day I found one, and that was the day this was taken on. I was so happy. I had the picture in my head, but I didn't have a clue of what I was doing. But I got the tree, so that was a start. And this is what I came up with: the tree and the four legs. Yeah, it was a lovely day as well. It was as if I was getting a message from above, because it was so sunny. And before that day, I was thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to find a 300-year-old tree? I literally got lost a few minutes later, and I ended up in a quarry that was full of disused trees. So I got what I needed, and that was that.
And if we move to the next slide, we will see what you made with this tree that came along your path.
Yeah. Wow.
So talk us through what you made, Cheryl.
Well, there's the main table, which is to the top right, and you can see on the table that's the 300-year-old tree cutting. And I really want to emphasize that these trees had already fallen, right? So no tree was cut down for the purposes of this table. But the tree top, which had already been fallen, it's had very clear rings around it. You can't see in the picture, but very fine, clear rings. And what I did was, see the smaller discs that are actually on the tree? Well, they were placed on the ring of each year of Nana Bonsu's life, a little bit like a timeline of what he did in that year. So the things that he was responsible for, the shifts that he made happen across Manchester city centre, the work that he did with the Race Relations Act and the local community and Sunday schools. All those achievements were on those discs. Now, the idea is, I thought, was to create 3 stools, 2 baby stools, to go with the big papa tree, and to sit on each stool and discuss and look at the contributions that were made on each little disc. Each little stool is made out of a different tree. So there's like elm, there's oak, there's cedar, and it was to represent the different tones in blackness and beauty. So Marcus Garvey was a huge part of Nana Bonsu's teachings and life. So I had to include that quote on one of the stools, which I did. So people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots. And that quote really kept me going throughout the times of study when I found the pain of the system of slavery or racism too much, you know? I found that going back to that quote just really kept me somewhere. So that was important to put in. And then we've got the map there, the journey, and the Pan-Africanist journey, really. And then on the last one, we've got the Adinkra symbols, so the ancient African symbols that have each got a meaning, like power and beauty, friendship and honor, which are the ones around that last stool there. And it says ancestral guidance for lifelong learning. That's really what I wanted to bring to the piece, really, was the connection with our ancestors, that spiritual connection, you know. And it worked, you know, because I definitely felt it. Could see other people feel that as well. It was quite beautiful.
And what can I see behind you there, Cheryl, in your room? There it is.
There it is. There it is. There's one of them.
Still have it.
Yeah, still have it. I've still got all of them, actually, but they're quite big. And they're in my back garden. And I've got the plaque at the bottom here. And I've got Nana Bonsu's carving. I did all these by hand, and I got a soldering iron, and I just sat and burn in with the soldering iron and used it like a pencil to create the artwork in the wood. Yeah,
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I really remember seeing it and you speaking about it, but also I was really, really struck by your connection to the community and finding the community in Manchester. So if we move to the next slide, we can see some of the guests here. And if we keep moving through the slides, I can see a very young lecturer there. I was a bit shocked when I saw these pictures again. I looked like a complete baby. And if we move to the final slide, Cheryl, I would really welcome you to tell us who you brought. Who did you bring on the night, and how did you come into contact with these people?
Well, from the MA module, I launched myself into the community, and I shouted from the rooftops, let me in, let me help, I'm here to learn. And underneath that, I wanted to know who I was, you know. My parents are actually to the right of the picture. My mum's got the brown jacket on and the pink jumper and the pink pants, and then my dad's to the right of her. So my father's Irish, my mum's Trinidadian. And for a long time, we'd experienced as a family a tremendous racism growing up in South Manchester in a predominantly Caucasian village. However, although I'd experienced all this racism, I didn't quite know how I could deal with it. I didn't know how I could answer somebody back that was calling me a name or accusing me of something I hadn't done. I knew it was extremely incorrect and unjust and all of the rest of those emotions that rise, but I just didn't know how to deal with it. But I knew there was a power underneath. The thing that drove me to these community groups that were sort of Black education-led groups, the thing that drove me to that was the power underneath, where I knew I have the answer to some of this stuff. I have a way through a lot of this stuff. I just need to connect with other people that are like me. I need to get to my elders. I need to get to my young people. I need to get there. So when I went to these community groups, I knew no one. I just busted in, you know, and I said, I'll clean, I'll note take, just let me in. Because growing up in the village I grew up in, there was only me and my big brother and my mum, and that was it. Everybody else was Caucasian. So getting into those centres was hugely healing for me, to be amongst people that were of colour and had a purpose to being together. And I went to the Manchester Community Centre, and that before Nana Bonsu passed, he used to run that centre. And he got funding for the building and all sorts. So Nana Bonsu, who the piece was dedicated to, his wife she's a queen. She's the one in the middle with the traditional African dress on, Okay, and to her right is Tina Tamsho Thomas. She's a poet. To the side of her with the check shirt, that's Ian Johns. He was a photographer. Now, Ian and Tina were long-time artists in the community, and they often got little recognition. So I really wanted to involve them because they had done so much ahead of me. I wanted to include them and create platforms so they could talk about their work. Because for me, it was about getting in what was already established and then sharing, once I was in there, what had been established. Behind her is Jess and Ngoma and Zainab, and they were also part of the group, and they became dear friends, all three of them of mine. So I've got friends that were brown, you know, that were light-skinned, dark-skinned, and it was just a joy because I never had that. Never. And then just behind me and my mum, there was Washington, and Washington was the person that introduced me to all these different groups. He was studying at Manchester University at the time, and I found him through different channels, and he said, this is what you want to do, join some community groups. And I said, I don't know any. He said, I'll send you the name and the address, and then you're on your own. And that was it. Yeah.
Cheryl, this is such an inspiring story. I have to say, the chat is lighting up with love for you and your table.
No.
The table and chair. One thing that I don't think you had told me at the time is that you tried to get the, is it the People's History Museum, to take the table and chairs as a museum piece? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'd gone from having zero confidence and confusion over my identity. I'm not even exaggerating on that. I really didn't. I knew where my mum and dad were born. I knew that I was a combination of both of them, but I didn't have any confidence in dealing with racist discrimination or just talking about my culture because I felt like I didn't have one. So I went from there to getting into these community groups, to hearing powerful speakers sort of blast out their perspectives and their stance in life and their experience. And it really, really impacted me, right? Like you did. So I went from being no confidence to extreme confidence. So by the time I did the table and chairs, I was on the phone to the People's History Museum at the time. And I said to them, I've got a piece of art and it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm going to give it to you because I've had blessing off Nana Bonsu's family and it's yours. And this woman on the phone said, well, I'm afraid we don't quite work like that. And she was so polite. And I know now, because I worked in museums for a long time after, I know now that that's not how you get your work into a museum. But I kept harassing them and saying, you need these table and chairs, you need them. And then eventually, I think I got the message. But I'm so glad that it put me in that position to start to speak to wider cultural organisations, because again, it gave me that window that I never knew was there, which is I've got the right to go to a museum. I've got the right to talk to an art gallery, because before then, I didn't think I had any because I was a person of colour. And in my head, people of colour don't belong in university. This was in my head then. They don't belong in museums. This was my head then. They don't belong in art galleries. This is my head then. None of that's true. Of course, none of that's true. But at the time, that's what I felt was true. The module helped me to get a hammer and just smash through that wall, you know? And I just sort of really want that to be known, that that's a thing that every single person can do. You know, so anyone like listening to this or tuning into this, you might have accessed one learning point, which might be university, the university you're at right now, MMU, or wherever you may be. But if there is another arena that you want to access, get that hammer out, get that hammer and smash it, because it opens, you know?
So maybe at this point, maybe we come out of the slides and we see where you took that hammer next. So I would like to go back to when you finished the module and you then decided to apply for an opportunity at the BFI. And I remember this really well because I think I completely agree with you. Your confidence grew, which is for, you know, for a teacher, amazing and wonderful to see when you see that someone is recognizing their potential. But at this point, I don't think you fully understood yet what you were capable of. And I think another big turning point, or at least, you know, watching from the sidelines this wonderful journey, was your opportunity at the BFI.
Yeah, it was. And the day I saw the advert, was I brought it to you, and I said to you because we were in class, and you said, well, you said, well, of course you've got to go for it. Like, it's, of course. And I was like, really? And you said, yeah, of course, go for it. And there was,
can you explain what the opportunity was?
yeah, the opportunity was, it was a junior management program, and it was a paid job, but it was an internship that had full informal educational backing, and it was in partnership with the British Film Institute and the UK Film Council. What was then, it's no longer in existence now, I don't think. But anyway, if you wanted to make a film in the UK, these were the people that said yay or nay. So it was massive. It was huge job. There were 4 opportunities going in different arenas. So there's one in community, one in education, one in funding, and one in marketing and comms. So yeah, I went for it. I applied, and I was like, as I applied, I remember your voice saying, just do it, just go for it. And I did, and I did not think that I would get through. I mean, one of my favorite films was E.T., you know, at the time. It was also Do the Right Thing at the time, and I thought that was not highbrow enough, you know. But I wrote it, and somehow I ended up getting the job. So it was a shock, really.
I remember you when you phoned me. I think I was running for a bus on Oxford Road, and I sort of had to stop and hear this news and absorb it. And it was just so wonderful because that really then set you on this journey of working, you know, in the cultural industries. And so in the introduction, Kai mentioned this award that you won in 2014. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, after working for the BFI, my job was focusing on diversity, sort of like diversity audiences, programming, helping up and coming filmmakers that were emerging and established. So I'd really gotten into working with the Black community and accessing services and helping groups to access big chunks of funding and really juicy opportunities, right, long term. And I've managed to go from working in film for a couple of years. I was really fortunate to then start working in museums and art galleries. And I think that that drive and that vision that started through the module just kept opening up and opening up and opening up. That sensation.
You never looked back, did you?
There's a movement, yeah. Sometimes that's how it gets you, doesn't it? You know, you're like, I can do it. No, I can't. Yes, you can. I can do it. And that's what kept happening. I ended up with a senior manager's job in one of the museums in the Northwest in Liverpool. And I was really fortunate to head up the program in there. And a lot of my ideas, I used to push and push. Not all of them got through. But the ones that did, one of them was a mental health support program with Black elders. It was tremendous, beautiful program. And there was only 10 service users that came to us. And I basically put together a bit of a learning package about Egypt, Africa, and it was really rich, really simple, and really connecting. So they come in and have a cup of tea and learn about Egypt and how it was called Kemet, right? Different types of dress in different parts of Africa, and it was really nourishing to them. And I'm not sure how, but it had a huge impact on them. They started to make friends with each other on another level. A lot of them were suffering isolation and loneliness before then. And I won this award. However, the best thing that came out of that project was about 6 months later. I'd worked with them for about 6 or 7 months, and then the project came to an end. But my goal was that a project never ends, that the person turns into an audience member, right, or an active visitor. 6 months later, I was pottering from one office to the other, and I saw them, and they'd all met up and they'd all arranged to have a brew and walk around the gallery. I said, hiya, I've not seen you for ages, how are you doing? They went, it's good to see you, Cheryl, looking good, girl, but we're in a rush. We've only got half an hour and we want to get round the museum and then we're off, see you later. And off they went. Now, my ego was crushed because they didn't really want to spend that much time talking to me. But my heart was raised. My heart was raised because before that moment, none of them elderlies had set foot in that museum. Not one of them. Because they didn't feel that it was for them. They didn't feel like they would be welcome. They didn't feel like that building had their essence in its mortar, you know, and it didn't. And that changed because they made it change. So that was the biggest thing, seeing the elderlies in the museum.
Cheryl, you have so many wonderful stories, and you know, at the time I really remember every now and then you would send me updates or you would invite me to events. I wasn't always able to come, but I remember coming to Slavery Remembrance Day, and I just was absolutely just blown away by how huge this event was, how you were organizing it, you were running the show. And a final anecdote, I guess, that I feel is, you know, was so interesting and so wonderful to hear about is how you brought Martin Luther King's son to Liverpool.
Oh, yeah, Dr. King's son. Well, I was on holiday in Atlanta, and I was still involved in the community programming work that I was doing. And but I was on holiday for pleasure, and I went off to the King Centre, highly recommended if you're ever in Atlanta. I went there, and it was strange because there was no visitors there that day. It was extremely quiet, extraordinarily quiet. And I went round the house, and I felt, honestly, I felt a shoulder I felt a hand on my shoulder when I was walking round the house that Dr. King was born in. When he was born, he slept in a little drawer, and it was like a cot, right, a beautiful cot, and they've still got it. And I felt this hand on my shoulder, and I turned around, there's no one there. So I left the house, and then I went and sat inside the centre with Rosa Parks. There's a lovely exhibition on Rosa Parks. And I look up, and there's these two little old ladies in front of me, and they both had hats on, woolly hats. Now, it was in the 80s, and they were inside with hats and coats. And they said, "Follow me, dear, follow me." And I ended up going outside with them. And I swear this is the truth, they disappeared. I looked, they disappeared. 1 minute they were there, next minute they were gone. I thought, oh my days, I must have heat stroke, sit down. So I sat down for a bit at Dr. King's grave, and I thought, well, whilst I'm here, I shall pray. I shall say, thank you for everything that you've done for us as a people. Thank you for everything you've done for us as a planet. Now, what else? Because I am on duty, I am ready to go. So tell me, give me the sign. I look up, and there's a pair of feet there, and there's two hands reaching out, and there's a face that really looks like Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King together. He says, "Hi, how are you doing? Are you okay?" And it turns out that it's Martin Luther King's son. He thought I was a college kid and I needed help because I was like that, because I thought I had heat stroke. And then within a matter of minutes, we exchanged details and we become friends. We're still friends. And he messaged me a month later, after I messaged him, a month or two later, saying, "I'm coming to England, I'd love to work with you." So we did a big program in Liverpool, and it was fantastic. And they're a great family, the King family. That's something that I never thought would happen. But you see, it's a magical world in many senses still. It's a painful one. And yet through the pain, if you are striving to do the right thing, those doors will open. You know, because that was an incredible moment in my life. I even got a building named after him in Liverpool. And it was a great moment because people were meeting Dr. King's son because we brought him over. And they were in tears because they were meeting the son of Dr. King, and they were getting to hold him and be close to him. Very moving for us as a community. So that was a great moment. Yeah, great moment. And he's
Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing such incredibly inspiring, rich stories and, you know, an insight into your journey. Before I open it up to questions, if anybody wants to think about any questions, please put them in the chat. I would like us to return to the ideas of Pan-Africanism, the Congress, and to really think about what does this mean today in the world now of BLM and, you know, a new spotlight on some of these issues. What does this movement mean to you today, Cheryl?
To me, it means the same as what it did when I first had the blessing and the pleasure of coming across your teachings and your presence under the module, which is, it's the revelation of truth. It's the revelation of that which is hidden. And what I mean by that is, for far too long, we as a people have believed in many things that were not true. Whether that is, I am ugly, I am stupid, I can't achieve, I can't succeed, I can't speak, I can't think, I can't feel, I have no worth, I have no value, I have no soul, I have no spirit. Because racism and discrimination is that traumatic for us as a collective and as an individual. You are wiped clean. And I feel, let us not forget that the attempt of the system of racism was to eradicate us completely. So we were not even supposed to be here right now. And all the other amazing people that are involved in this event, not supposed to be around here right now. It was an attempt to destroy us. And I feel that connecting to the truth of the power, I mentioned that at the beginning, but that's very important. The power that we have as individuals and as a collective to know the truth, which is the beauty that resides within us, the intellect that resides within us, the spirit that resides within us, because for the fact that we are still here says a tremendous amount. And we have to do a lot of firefighting, so much so we sometimes have in the background how much gifted, talented, tremendous beings we are just to be here. We don't always have time for the celebration because we're too busy having to fight, having to get the fight, you know, the fire hydrant out, right? And so for me, it's that continual reminder individually of the truth, and as a collective to help shift that dynamic. And it feels still so good to me when I see another person of color. I always say hello to every single human being because I love all human beings. And when I see a person of color, there is a certain acknowledgement that I really do feel honored to give, which is a nod and a smile to say, keep going, because I know you struggle. And that for me is living the Pan-African Congress. And I always wanted to call it Congress rather than conference, because I never, ever, ever want to believe that it was yesterday. When we talk about racism, it's always in a past tense. It's not. It is alive and it is here and it is breathing right now. And we have to go over that and be that breath first, you know, get there before it. And that's what I recognize the truth is giving, you know, because even if you succeed in one area of life, which might be your career, this subject or your studies, this subject of racism and discrimination will still try and pull you down in another element of your life, be it your health, be it your finances, be your emotions. It will crawl at you, it will grab you, it will beat you, it will thrash you. And that's why in all aspects of your life, to me, it has to be based on the truth.
Cheryl, people have a lot of love for you, as do I. But we have questions. We have some questions from the audience. So one really ties in with what you've just spoken about. This is from Amy McGuire. How have both your views on Pan-Africanism and anti-racism changed over the past 17 years? And have things moved on enough for you?
What was the one before have things moved on enough?
Have things moved on enough for you in terms of anti-racism?
No, absolutely no. N to the O, to the N to the O, to the N to the O. Absolutely not. There may be an arena where the topic is more familiar. There may be a space where the discussion is more seen and more heard, but it is the action point, it is the intention point, it is the still doing, and it's still being done, because the infection is still here, and it will always try and change shape in order to survive. It will change its face, it will change its identity, it will change its constructs in order to survive. And although we've got laws in place and we've got guidelines in place and we've got all these good intentions and all these fantastic campaigns and programs and research, and all that is phenomenal, but it still remains. It still remains, and I recognize that there has to be a different approach. There has to be a multi-dynamic approach to this, coming from we the people, as in people of color. And anyone that is outside of that doing their approach, absolutely. But there has to be more, because we are not ever taught on how to deal with racism. When someone treats you badly and you can sense it, because our intuition is pretty sharp. So we know when it's there. We don't even have to have someone say something that is offensive. We feel it. And on that level, which to me is cellular, it is a cellular level, we need to be equipping ourselves and getting strength in that area so that our mental health and our physical health has a better chance of survival, you know? And so that's how I see it. I'm sorry I can't be any less than that, but I really feel like there's no change.
I mean, connected to that, I think this resonates with many of us who are, you know, Black and of ethnic minority backgrounds, certainly at the institution. So thank you for speaking about this so eloquently and so powerfully. Another question related to this is, what advice would you give to students of color who are struggling through finding who they are in higher education?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So was the last question actually as well. The struggle, this might sound like a strange response, but this is what I did. The pain is the key part of the struggle. I'm going to say that again. The pain is the key part of the struggle. And the pain will do two things. It will want your attention and it will try to take you out. It will want your attention, it'll try to take you out. And the only way that you can continue to get through your studies is coming up with a system where you can manage those two things, so the attention and the takeout. The only thing that you can keep realizing is that you are bigger than the pain. And when I mean you, I mean you. I mean the who that you are. The who that you are has a greater force, a greater power within than that which is trying to impact you and will impact you. And that is a given. But you see, that pain, once you follow it a little bit, it will keep pulling. I was saying this before, and it will keep dragging. So you have to use the intellect, and I don't just mean academic intellect, I mean the intellect of your academia, but also the intellect that has made you run from a situation when you've got to run. Know that you're not supposed to go somewhere because there's something inside telling you. So you must put it on a post-it note if you can, and put the post-it notes everywhere. Put them in your fridge, put them on your computer, put them on your calendar, put them in your phone. And on the post-it note, I want you to write, I am powerful, I am amazing, I am great, we are powerful, we are great, We are amazing. All you need is a pen and a piece of paper. You put your paper, your post-it notes in many places. So on the days you know you're having a hard time, you open your book, you'll find your note. You open your fridge, you'll find your note. So have visual reminders, and then also tap into this and explore things like meditation and breathing. I'm a yoga teacher and I teach that kind of stuff, and there is power in it, and it comes from ancient Kemet. So this is an African system, many healing modalities that are African based, yoga, African based and Indian based, but the two come together because the world was different then. But these systems as well to help you get more space here so you can use the power in here. So I hope that answers your question a bit.
I think more than that, I think people want you to come and deliver this as training at the university. Because I mean, it's so powerful. You speak so powerfully, but I think what really also resonates is your very practical advice, and you know, coming really from your own experiences. So I think that is a genuine invitation that we will try to make happen. Just a couple more questions. I'm very conscious of the time. This is a question from Rajesh. What do you think using creative activity means adds for those connecting to Africa for the diaspora?
Say that again. Sorry, that just broke.
What do you think using creative activity means adds for those connecting to Africa and for the diaspora? I think that the use of kind of creative means and the way that you made the table and the stool.
Yeah. Beautiful question. So if you look back, you have to come from a historical context. Whenever you're looking at any of these systems with Pan-Africanism, it is saying and it is inviting everyone to come from a historical context. And when we think of our ancestors that were forcibly removed from their home country, removed and ripped out of their family homes and their settings, they would do something extremely creative. And that was a beautiful start of it, out of their homes, which was braiding hair, which was making with cloths, which was looking around their environment and saying, I refuse to be imprisoned in this. I am going to take my voice, my hands, my hair, my cloth, my identity, my culture, and I will use whatever physical mean there is with my senses that are still mine, that will never be taken from me, never. So when you're doing your artwork, whether that's picking up a pen or like me, you know, going to a quarry and getting some fallen trees, you're tapping into that resonance, you know, you're tapping into that vibration that is very real, that ancestrally helped to salvage spirit and salvage culture. So there's a force there. I know I keep using the word power, but what I mean by that is to empower. So when you're picking up something and you're making something, that part of you that is in pain, that part of you that is confused, because it's still hard to get your head around the fact that the system of slavery happened and it's still going on now. Let's not forget that for 1 second, that modern day state slavery is still rife and existent. There needs to be an outlet to express that. And when it comes to a creative method, you're tapping into the historical element of that. And you're also creating a safer space, I feel, for you to let that happen. Because when we're in pain, it is also vulnerable to speak about that pain. And unfortunately, we don't live in a society yet where you can turn around to someone who might not be of colour, and you might want to turn around to somebody who may be of colour. We don't live in a society where it's guaranteed that you will have empathy, unconditional positive regard, and active listening, that what your pain is bringing up for you will be valued and acknowledged as real. So because we don't live in that time yet fully, creative methods are, for me, one of the safest healing modalities you can do.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question, but I think it's very appropriate that this is coming from somebody who is also a student at MMU and who may still be a student. I'm not sure, Rudy. What she highlights is definitely as a first year, this would have been amazing to hear. So again, very much, real appreciation and love for your inspiring words. But the question is, are there any grassroots and community organizations in the Northwest that you feel people should know about and support?
Right.
Just a correction, Rudy is now an alumni. So she's an alumni like you, a more recent alumni. Thank you, Rudy.
Well, I love that question. I don't live in Manchester anymore. I live in just outside of it. I live in Chorley. And one of the things that sadly happened was that quite a few of the setups that were in place when I was at MMU are no longer in place. So to me, there's a real void. Now, I recognise that I'm not in the heart of the city anymore. So it may well be that I'm well out of touch with what's going on now. However, when I recently was doing a little bit of looking around, I found some initiatives, but they were not grassroots raw talk. They were very helpful and they were practical, helping Black businesses and minority ethnic group businesses to get funding for social enterprise, for example, helping businesses from the same group get networking opportunities. So it's moved into a slightly different model. And I'm not seeing, and I would love to see, I'm not seeing any standout group that is community, and I mean grassroots community led. It's something that I would love to see, and I would appreciate to be corrected on that. If anyone knows of somewhere that I don't know about, I do apologize about that. But I do recognize that the systems are out there are more sort of, they're more on a package or a program business basis. I'm interpreting that question as, where are the Sunday schools? Where are the schools where we can talk about consciousness, where we can learn about recipes, where we can learn about kente cloth, where we can learn about steel bands, where we can learn about Nancy Spider stories, I would love to see that. We need that. I really would, and I'd love as well to be corrected on if there is a place like that. Manchester really needs that. Manchester really needs that, and I'd love to see it, and I'd love to be a part of something like that as well.
I think I can speak for everybody here, Cheryl, that Manchester needs you, and I think MMU needs you, and we need you to come back. So if there is any way we can invite you back, we can further engage with you. Me, as your former teacher, I couldn't be more proud of what I contributed to nearly 20 years ago. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear just a small update of what you've achieved and how you've actualized everything that we knew was possible for you. And you've made it happen. It's honestly such an inspiring, such an incredible story, an absolute pleasure to reconnect with you. And I want to thank everybody here for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. And we hope that you enjoyed the rest of the events this weekend. And thank you very much for hosting us, Kai and Ola. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Farida. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Be blessed. Bye.